When I lived in Alberta, one of the things I noticed was Alberta doesn't seem to want to have a sense of its history. It seems to just want to knock down everything that's old, get rid of its heritage buildings. It often talks about the future, never about the past. It was just this weird thing I noticed when I lived there. It was like everyone was averse to history. But the consequences of that is that you get these places like Calgary and Edmonton that barely have anything from their past anymore. You've got the Kensington neighborhood in Calgary, which is great, but other than that, most of the city is just beige vinyl siding, and it's really gross. That whole erasure of Calgary's own history has made it an extraordinarily ugly city, and Edmonton is no better. In fact, all the cities in Alberta are pretty gross. But then it almost seems to be the intent, not a mistake. Albertans generally seem intent on destroying beauty itself, beauty and history. And it's weird, and I wonder why it is that Alberta has chosen to be so ugly and so averse to history. Now, this is not to say that Alberta doesn't make some attempts at preserving its ties to the past. It does. It has some things like the fabulous Bow Valley Museum, but otherwise it's mostly the provincial government that's tasked with preserving the province's history. It's not really the people that get involved very much. There are 6 provincially funded organizations dedicated to Alberta's history. But otherwise, you compare that to British Columbia, for example, or other provinces such as Quebec, there's a really strong sense of history. And you find highly engaged citizens. I mean, here in BC, you have historical societies for pretty much every village, town, city, valley, region. And these are organizations run by individual citizens. There's over 100 of them officially registered in the province. Quebec similarly has actually even more, 150 to 200. This love of history in BC and Quebec is actually well known in the book world. Publishers, for example, know that books on BC history topics sell really well. Books on Alberta history, not so much. But it's not just books. I mean, there's the TV program Ghost Trails and Ghost Towns that was produced in Kelowna back in the 1990s. Still so popular, it plays on Netflix. And on Facebook, you got all sorts of BC history groups like Lost BC, which have 100,000 followers. The best I could find in comparison for Alberta was Alberta Hometown Memories, which does have a respectable 55,000 followers, so that's not bad. Now, I could go on and on with the comparisons, but it does seem that Alberta generally lacks a history, or at least an interest in its history. Meanwhile, BC, Quebec, other provinces have a very strong interest in their history, so much so that people can't really get enough of it. So I was wondering, maybe some of you can tell me, but I'm wondering why Alberta is so disinterested. It's a strange phenomenon that Albertans who seem to be so proud of themselves don't seem to know much about themselves, which makes me wonder, were Alberta to go on its own, to be a separate nation, how would it create a solid identity as a nation if it doesn't have a strong connection to its past?